So we are going to have a demo for a ServiceNow decision builder tool today, and we want to make sure that we have a precise understanding of how does this tool look like. So let's try to have a problem just to make sure that where we can use the ServiceNow decision builder. So let's try to imagine a problem. So let's say that I want to buy a Windows Microsoft Azure virtual machine, and I need to take a decision, and there are multiple type of machines for multiple purposes, right? So I'll go with different pricing options for Windows machine, right? So I have to take a decision based on that. So I can input some parameters, and based on that I can pop out some kind of pricing for that model or that design of the virtual machine. So let's say I'll ask about pricing of Azure virtual machines in INR. Okay. So pricing of different so now this is showing me the virtual machine pricing for Azure. So it might give me a table if I'm not wrong. So it gave me some links. The pricing of this machine is 3 parameters. Okay. The reason, how long it runs, and how much cost per hour. And it has so let's go to this link. So they have certain parameter based on that the pricing model works, right? So for example, let's take an example of few parameters here, like the type of VM you choose, or and different methods basically. So let's try to see the pricing model that we are going to choose here. So let's take these 3 parameters: the VM instance you choose, how long your VM instance runs, and the type of pricing model you choose. So let's go to the pricing model maybe, because that looks more precise. So if we have pay as you go, reserve instance, and spot VM, so we can have a decision builder table where one is the pricing model and one can be the basics or something like let's say that processing cores, right? For example, we have CPU, number of CPU, number of core, and number of memory, hard drive or SSD, like all that options, right? So we'll create a decision builder table for that. Okay, so let's start with ServiceNow. So let's begin with flow designer. So we'll go ahead and search for flow designer, right? And we'll be creating a new flow to utilize our decision builder table that we have created, and we have to test that with our right amount of data to make sure that it's able to pick the right decisions, right? As you know, our use case is to choose the right type of plan for our virtual machines purchase, right? So I'm going to create a brand new flow from scratch, and I'll call it VM Azure VM purchase, right? I'll say decision to purchase the Azure VM. Okay, the application is fine, other things are fine. I'm going to run it as a user who initiate the session, as a person like the admin, currently logged in person. So I have this flow, and as you know, we have some trigger and we have some actions, right? And then we are going to run our flow, test and see. So the trigger condition, we have to select some records to be created, or some other way of running this. So our goal is just to test the decision build table. So we'll say let's run it once, right? And we have to run it on demand basically. So we'll say run it once, but anyhow we are just going to test right now. So we'll give it today's date, for example 3:10, 5 minutes from now. So this is our trigger condition, and then we are going to test the flow basically, right? So we have some flow logic, and in flow logic we have something called make a decision. So this make a decision is going to pull your decision builder table here, right? So here you're going to select the decision table that you created. So we have created Azure VM pricing. As you know, this is our decision builder table, Azure VM pricing. We have all these labels and we have all these conditions. Based on your conditions, you are going to select the right plan, right? So we'll call it Azure VM pricing. Okay. So it will take the first decision that makes, right? And we are not going to use branches, I guess, so because branches are a bit confusing. Then we'll make it simple, and we are going to give it some data, and then it is going to give me the right output, right? And then we are going to test it. So for example, let's say that I'm going to have 2 virtual CPUs, right? I'm going to have 16 GB of RAM. So we know that we can only give certain data which is already present in our decision build table, right? So if we don't have such use case where we have 2 and 16 combination, it will not give you the right results, right? So let's take an example from here. So let's take an example of this data 4, 32 and 256 with United States of America, and it should return me this reserved instance as a plan, right? So let's give it that input 4, 32 and 256. So we give 4, 32 and 256, and location we select as United States of America, right? And we are done. So this action is going to run, right? This action is going to run, and it is going to give me some output, right? And based on that output I can do so many things, right? But I'm just going to run this flow, and I'm going to test it, and I'm going to check whether it's giving me the right results or not, right? So first I'll save this, and as you know, like, we are passing the static data here, but you can actually dynamically link it with some other dynamic data, right? So this is, we are just testing our decision builder table here, so we are trying to keep it simple. Now we are going to test it, but I think the test options are disabled, not sure why. Let's go to home, let's close it, reopen it. So test options are not coming, maybe because our trigger conditions are not good. If we have just selected for running at once, right, we will not be able to provide any test data. That's why test decisions are actually test option is disabled. So what I can do, I'll just select some create and updated, and I'll select a table. I'll select some random table. For example, I'll go ahead with incident table, right, and I'll say for each update, okay. And I'll select done, and I save it. If this doesn't give me the test option, which means like I have to select it under the right scope, so, or maybe I have to run it based on the system, right? So if I select it as a system user, it still does not gives me. So let me select a table which is under the scope of my current application scope. So I'll take indication case, for example, and if I select some kind of conditions here, so like conditions are not required, I guess. So let's save it. So maybe it does not have enough items to run. So it says diagram view is unavailable because of the following unsupported flow logic type presents. Okay, so our flow logic is not good, I guess, for that. Okay, so we have to add some more actions, I guess, here. So we'll select some if conditions, because, or let's make this decision as a branching, and we'll do some options. So if it make it like a branches, right, and we are done. So it has 3 different branches, right? So if it is returning me a spot VMs, then I'll do something here. If it's returning this one, I'll do something here, and like this. Okay, so let's save it, and still it is not sufficient, right? So we'll go ahead and put some action here. So for example, I'll say update a record, right? So I'll say update the record, and I'm going to update this indication case record. So I'll select that from the trigger, this record here, and I'll make some data like I'll say name as spot VMs, okay, and done. So I'm doing one update. Now I can see the test options are enabled. So here we are doing some tangible actions, and that's why these things are enabled, right? So once it goes to the right option, right decision, it'll basically perform that necessary action. So as you know, like when this plan is selected, I'm going to update record as this. When this plan is selected, I'm going to update the record as different. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this one, and I'm going to place it all together here. So I'll create 2 copies here, right? And I'll move one here and one here, right? And then I'll just make some changes here. So this is reserved instance, right? So I'll set it as a reserved instance, and here I'll select as a pay as you go. All right, so we have 3 different options, decisions, and it's doing some actions on top of them, right? So we have saved it, but we have not activated it. we'll first test it and then we'll activate it. Okay, so as you know, like we are passing this 232, 256 and USA as a combination, so it should give me this option, reserved instance, and once it will go with this plan, it is going to perform this action and it's going to update this record as a reserve instance, right? Going to set that name here. So let's try to test it, and we'll select some record here. So let's take this one, because this is one record and its name is going to change. Okay, so we are going to run it and we are going to see the action here. So this is running, and let's see the executions now. So we have a decision builder table here, as you have seen earlier. So with these decision builder tables, you have some inputs. We have certain things to take decisions on, some conditions, and then we have a plan. So let's go and start building a flow designer to test this out. Alright, so this time we are going to make some changes in our action, and we are going to trigger our flow with actual trigger conditions, right? So what we'll do, we'll just go here and make some data changes. So let's take another set of data here and we supply that. So let's take an example of India. So we'll go with 28128 and India for spot VMs, right? So we'll take 28128 and India, and we are going to save it, right? And this time we are going to activate it. So once you activate, it's going to be working on the platform level. So now it's activated, right? And now we are going to trigger the condition that it's expecting. So it's expecting a record to be created in indication cache table, right, to trigger this flow. So we'll go ahead, let's go to our App Engine Studio where we have our app, and we'll go to the right table and try to insert some data there. Right. And one thing to notice that whatever record we are going to create, our flow is going to run. So our app is this, and one thing to notice is that we are going to create a record in indication cache table. That is our trigger condition, right? So we have our indication cache table here. Okay, so there is an option for preview, and I can see all my records here. You can see the first record which I was running a test for, and it is like a reserved instance now. So I'm going to click new, and I'm going to create a new record. So I'll give it like a decision builder test. Okay, I know that the moment I'll give it a name, it's going to be renamed based on the decision builder decision. Okay, and we know that our decision builder is going to give me a spot VMs because we have supplied this combination, right? So this, my name is going to rename to spot VMs, because once I create this record, the flow is going to run in the backend, and it is going to rename this name here. Okay, so let's try this. Let's see how fast this action is happening. Okay, So I can see currently it is this name, but if I refresh this page, maybe it will be have a new name. So let me try to refresh it. I'll just go here, and so we don't have a refresh option here, we have refresh list here. So you can see it's now renamed to Spot VMs. It was already renamed in the backend, and I refresh and it became Spot VMs, right? And we want to see how it happened, right? Where it happened and where is the flow that ran in the backend and how this change happened. So let's try to see the backend behind the scenes about this record which just got renamed. Okay. Alright, so as we have seen that this record which I just created, it got renamed as per the decision builder, right? But we are going to see the backend flow in action for this record, and we are going to go to the flow designer. So there are multiple options to see that action in the backend. I'll go with the very basic and simple one. So I'll go to the home page, and basically I'll go to the executions. So this is going to show me the recent execution that happened for this flow, right? This is one way. The other way is like you already have this flow open and you know this flow was actually running in the backend. So there is an option here and there is something called executions. So if you click on this, you are going to see all the execution of that flow. Okay. So let's take this, and this one is something which ran 9 minutes ago. I think that's the latest one. So let's sort it basically. So we are going to, latest one is 3 minutes ago. So this is the one that just ran, and we just open it. So it says flow reports are not available. Check system property, open context record. Yeah, I know about this bug. It is recently being introduced with I think Tokyo upgrade, where they have some kind of encrypted context on some flows, right? And because of that, if I don't have certain roles, even like I am admin, I'm not able to see the flow context here. So let's try another way and go to the home page and go to the executions, and I click this. I'm not able to see the executions, but I know the fix for this, so I'll apply it. So the previous one I'm able to see that action, but the latest one which just got triggered by that record, and that record is actually in the custom scope. So that's why we have this extra security that has been introduced. So let's try to disable that encryption context security. Okay. So how do we do that? We're just going to get into the roles, right? I mean, this is basically the platform level thing, but I'm just showing you that. So there is something called encryption context, right? Is it like a protection policy or required subscription? So there is something called encryption context. Okay, so let's try to see encryption. No. So let's search in ServiceNow environment. Let me use my Bing AI for that. So this Copilot is going to help me with that. So how to check the role encryption context? Role encryption context in ServiceNow. So it says that you go to system security roles and open the role record associated with the encryption context on the, or create a role, then right click on the header, and okay, so on the form layout it asked me to add the encryption context field because in the list view it is not visible. Okay, so we go to any role. For example, I go to admin role, and so I am not in the correct scope, so I have to go to the global scope first. Okay, so I'll come here and I'll go to the global scope. So then I'll have more permissions, and because it is running on my role, my user account, that's why the flow is actually throwing error. So let's try to add the encryption context here in the form layout. Now this is getting a bit interesting. I didn't thought about it that this could happen, but it happens, so we deal with it. Alright, it's a bit slow. The other option I can try is like, instead of running with my user account, I could run with the system user, and maybe that time it will not throw the error. But let's try to see if there is a encryption context here. So this is saying that go to form layout to configure the role, add encryption context field, right? So I don't see an encryption context field. So first of all, let me see which instance my which version my instance is. So if I check stats, this is Tokyo. Okay, so encryption context is introduced in Tokyo, that I know. So there is a way to check that. But I'm not able to see that. Is it because I'm not have elevated permissions? So let me try to elevate my roles. Okay. So to elevate my roles, I have to click on elevate roles. So now I have the most precious role, and then I'll try to check again. Form layout. No, there is no encryption context here. Let me go to form design and see if there is something there. So nothing like encryption context. Let's do one thing. Let's try with some other role. Maybe this is like a so it says global, but my scope is RAP. I changed the scope, I guess. I think this is some flaw that recently being introduced in this version. So let's try to run the flow with another user. So here we are in our flow, and we are going to run this. So let me first go to my right scope, that is RAP scope. I think this scope change is also not happening very well with this version. So I'm in the right scope, and now I go to my flow designer, and I'm going to change my properties to run as a okay. Is it already running as a system user? Let me refresh and see. In that case, that might be a problem. So Is it running as a system user? Okay, so I'm going to run it with my user account, and I'm going to update it, and then I'm activating it. So now it should follow my credentials, not system credentials. So now let's try to see again one more time. Yeah, it's running as a user. So I'll go and create another record to see if I know it will gonna take some action here. This time what I'll do, I'll just update this record instead of creating that, because our flow is running on update as well. So I'll say decision builder test run 2. Okay, and I'm just going to update it. So it got updated. Okay, and I'm going to refresh the list to see what happens to this. So refresh, and we'll see that it again renamed, which means flow is running in the backend again second time. And let's see if I'm allowed to see the flow. Okay, so I came back here. I'm going to check the executions again, and this is the latest execution which just now executed, and no, so I'm not able to see the actual executions here which is happening, right? What is context record? Okay, it gives me the backend view, but I'm not able to see more details to it. I know that if I test it manually by supplying the test record, it will work, but when I'm triggering it directly from the record, it gives me this kind of error. Anyways, but the goal is that we wanted to test this action, this decision builder, and we know that our decision builders are actually working fine. When I give it the right data, it gives me the right plan, and that's the job of the decision builder. I'll explain you one more time. So we have some inputs, we have some decision table, and we have some results. So we supply some inputs here like CPU, RAM, storage, location as an integer value, as a reference value, and then I have some records as a columns for RAM, storage, location, and result as a plan. And then I have all of this data, and then it's giving me this result. And that's how this decision builder flow works basically. Alright, I think that was all behind this use case today. I'll be creating more use cases, and we'll see more in future. Thank you so much for being in touch. Have a great day ahead. Bye.
Thanks for watching the video.